Good
Good
morning.
morning. How are you, Tay?
Good. Um, it's been a really crazy week last week. I feel like I'm kind of behind on this uh, lecture, this one, so I'm gonna try my best to catch up today
Cool.
and just really mentally focus and everything.
Yeah, no, that's
So
okay.
I apologize if I don't speak as much, I think, just a heads up. Yeah, I had like tonsillitis all last week and then with work and then my daughter and everything. It was such a crazy week last week. Yeah.
Everything's happening at once, and
Yeah.
when our babies are sick, forget it. Like, so. Well, I hope that you guys are all doing better.
Yeah, we are.
And
Thank you.
and that's okay. Probably the biggest thing is to make sure to do the lab, the movement lab, because I think that'll really help you personally, like kind of better understand and kind of absorb that. Um, and then check out the recorded lectures, obviously, for this week. But yeah, you'll be good. Hi, Stephanie.
Hello.
Go. Okay, well, technically it's 8:31, so hi, it's the three of us. Yay! um, uh, it can you grab it? Are you okay? Hang on just a second. As am I, and the dog opened it. Oh, yay. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning.
Kind of like this. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and jump in. Hopefully, as others later on watch the recording, there we go, we will be able to kind of catch them up. So to start with, I want to kind of do the housekeeping. So I'm going to take us out. Hey, Stephanie.
Hello.
And this is our plan for this kind of unit, right? So this is the last one for this unit. Again, for those of you who were on with us at the end, last time we kind of got cut off because nobody could hear me. So again, if you can't hear me for any reason, let me know. And we'll kind of back up and sort that out. But today we are finishing up our Americas unit. It's a lot of fun. We get to talk about folkloric dance in Puerto Rico. We get to look at ballet folklorico in Mexico, and then we go down and do the tango in Argentina, and that's a lot of fun. So after this, right after this, if you want, you can hop on and you can knock out the Americas unit quiz. Again, remember, you can like take it today and see how you do, and then go right back in and take it again if you want, or you can wait and then take a little bit later. But by the end of the day on Friday, just make sure you've knocked that out. Then on Sunday, your Americas unit paper is due. And this one is a little bit more of a complex kind of question. So we're kind of digging down deeper, right? We started with a really sort of top layer question of, you know, how does Indian dance or a dance from India compare with your dance experience or dance exposure? And now we're kind of down into a more kind of nitty gritty kind of question. Again, approach all of these as a journal entry or sort of an expanded journal entry. And I am always happy to take a look at a draft and kind of, you know, help you unpack what you're saying or, you know, further your conversation and your thoughts. So this one is very subjective. Indigenous people, enslaved people, and economically disadvantaged people often have elements of their culture outlawed or appropriated by national governments. So we've already seen two of those, right? We saw the Native American ghost dance being basically outlawed, and we saw Haitian voodoo by virtue of the blockades and you know, basically cutting Haiti off from the rest of the world because they had a successful slave uprising. We see them put into definitely an economically disadvantaged situation, and the government basically suppressing or downright outlawing the practice of voodoo. So for you, which cultural dance in this unit is the most striking example of this suppression and or celebration? Now, one could argue to a certain extent that voodoo is kind of celebrated. It's seen as, you know, kind of a counterculture idea as people start to kind of absorb it and take it in. At the same time, Native American dance is now being celebrated, being accepted, being included. We are going to see two elements of folkloric dance, both in Puerto Rico and in Mexico. And so we'll see how they are kind of appropriated as a way of celebrating the governments there and the blending of different cultures. And then tango. And tango is really rich because tango is the one that most notably kind of goes through all of these ups and downs, right? The ghost dance is kind of seen and squashed. Voodoo is kind of seen and squashed. Folkloric dance is kind of like, oh yeah, that's us. Okay, yeah, cool, right? And tango is like, we don't know how we feel about guys dancing with guys. We don't know how we feel about guys dancing with prostitutes. We seem to be okay with women dancing with women, right? Because you got to imagine like the prostitutes practice together too or something, right? That was apparently like, ooh, that's sexy, right? But guys dancing with guys, ooh, no, that's bad. That's a threat. So we kind of squash it. Then it goes out throughout the rest of the world and it gets celebrated. So Argentina's like, oh yeah, that's us, that's cool, right? And then we kind of get this really macho kind of governmental swing. And again, the tango kind of gets squashed and suppressed because again, it's like, ooh, it's about loose morals and, you can dance with whoever you want and you're very sexy. And oh, no, we don't like that. But then everyone starts doing it after World War II. And the soldiers have now traveled the world. And so everyone's like, ooh, tango is awesome. And now tango is celebrated as like the Argentine dance. So it's the one that's had the most kind of a roller coaster ride, if you will. So we'll get into that one today. So that is your paper topic. If you have any, sorry, this is like bugging me. There we go. If you have any questions about your paper, or remember, the quiz is never a gotcha. The quiz is always just straightforward, like this is this. Okay, cool. That's the whole point. It's just to kind of solidify stuff for us. But any questions, you can definitely hang out afterwards to ask me, or you can always send me an email and we can chat at that time. Pretty cool. Philip's the only one I can see, but good. Okay. All right. So yay. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that. So now we're going to go forward and we are going to continue exploring the Americas. This is a really kind of challenging unit to process and to move through because the first two that we looked at, and I'm going to kind of roll us back just a little bit, were definitely religious or spiritual practices that are tamped down, right? Are either completely blockaded and separated from the rest of the world, and despised by the Catholic Church and called devil worship. All of these derogatory terms that they can put on voodoo, they did. And as evidenced by kind of our conversation, a lot of that is still there, right? This kind of wariness of voodoo is definitely still present. And then with the Native American ghost dance, again, something that was misunderstood and was attacked for being, this is very boring, but attacked for being different and a misunderstanding, and you get the massacre at Wounded Knee. So these two kind of stand together. Now we're going to move into two others that definitely stand together. They are both folkloric dance, and they are both used to kind of celebrate the cultures of their area, as well as highlight the blending of different cultures, different religions, and really different senses of music and dance and movement. So the first is Puerto Rico. So we ended up right over here in Haiti, and now we're going to pop right over here to Puerto Rico. And we got to see a little bit of this in the lecture video, but I wanted to show you this little bit
in Puerto
right
Rico
here.
In the Caribbean National Forest, there's evidence of the native people who lived there centuries ago. When Columbus discovered Puerto Rico, the Taino population in the island was
had another being.
There we go. So this little bit right here, and I'm not sure I talked about this in the lecture, but these are rock carvings found in Puerto Rico. And what they do is they take flour and trace over the lines so that you can see the relief a little bit better, a little bit clearer in the rock. And what I think is really fascinating about these images is you can really see kind of part of the spirit religion of the Taino, or the native population of Puerto Rico, because all of these little guys have something kind of coming out of the top of their heads. to me, this one definitely looks like an alien. And I don't know about you, maybe I'm just weird. But this really kind of shows you, oh, there we go. This really shows you that the idea of a spirit or of something leaving the body or something being a part of the body is worldwide, right? So this is a nature-based spirit religion where we can see this sense of a person's additional spirit or additional entity kind of being a part of them. This next one I am getting captioned, so it might kind of be hard to hear her, but she is going to talk about the Arawak people. So the Taino is basically like saying Native American. It is a word that they claim, but is also used to identify large groups of peoples. So the Arawak were a group of Taino who lived in Puerto Rico. And so she's going to talk about some of the things that the Arawaks did, and then the children, because they're cute, are going to show us a little bit of, maybe what the dance kind of looked like. And again, this is not captioned, so, listen as best you can. I'll try to unpack it.
Julia de Burgos Cultural Arts Center presents a history of Puerto Rican and Latin dance. We begin at the beginning with the Taino Indians, also known as the Arawaks. They were the indigenous people of Puerto Rico. They were peaceful people that were advanced and who relied on agriculture, hunting, and fishing. A very important part of Taino culture was the ceremony, which were called aretos. Aretos usually took place in the main plaza of the village or in an area in front of the chief's house. These areas, known as batey, worked as dance grounds and were limited by a series of standing stones, often decorated with carved images. The purpose of the areto ceremony was for the living to communicate with the spirit world. This was attained through music and dances. Aretos took place on many different occasions: to celebrate birth, marriages, or mourn death, to declare war or peace, or to celebrate the arrival or departure of the important visitors. Although the Tainos are almost non-existent today, their influences is still very much alive across the island of Puerto Rico.
Come back and clean this stuff up. But hopefully you could kind of hear a little bit of the music in there, and we'll see how that kind of blends with everything else. So this next one is the danza, and what I love about this, and we can totally talk about this, is that this is supposedly kind of ruckus and crazy. And I don't know about you, but I don't perceive this as super crazy. So while they keep dancing, I will note a couple of things in here, and then we'll talk about them. And the thing that I find kind of fascinating is the women do keep the arm out. I have other examples too, where they keep the left arm out as well as the right. And in this case, the gentlemen hold their wrists because the fan is a part of the costume. So she is always going to hold the fan, and he ends up holding her wrist then instead of her hand. They are always in fancy dresses, and often the guys are in tuxedos, and if not tuxedos, then definitely nice suits. So all of this is a costume and part of the danza. I want to see, I know I'll have to come back and get you. I had a student who is from Puerto Rico who actually sent me another example of the danza, and I want to see if I can find that one. I just had it up. Shoot. There it is. So what I find kind of fascinating about this one is we actually get to see a little bit more of the intro. And you'll notice the women are always with their fans. The guys have their tuxedos on. We still have fancy dresses. In this case, they are much more sort of Spanish looking than in the other version where it was kind of modern or contemporary. And the whole kind of premise behind the danza is that it's actually the Puerto Rican natives as well as slave population that are basically, and here you go, you can see the left arm out too, that are basically making fun of what they see the Spanish colonialists doing. So this is actually kind of poking fun at Spain. So once again, you can see that there's a little bit more movement going on here, but it's still very, very formal. The kind of risque part, or the more sort of scandalous part, is look at how close they are to their partners, right? And these guys are not even as close as my other version was, where their torsos are basically touching a lot of the time. And again, that was not how the Spanish danced, right? So the Spanish brought their culture with them from Spain. And so they were like, well, we might be in this island, but we are still Spanish. And so they wanted to keep that very sort of aristocratic kind of sensibility. So this is the interpretation of that aristocratic sensibility and kind of poking fun at it. Again, I don't know about you, but it's like, to me, that I don't see much difference. But I mean, you got to take into account like the time period, right? Like for them to dance really close to somebody else was like, oh, what are you doing, right? So this is kind of the most like formal of the dances that we're gonna look at here. So now, and I like that example. I think I'll add it into our slides and stuff, so you guys can check it out too. The next one also has been having trouble. Yeah, that stinks. Okay, let me find this one. I had it fixed up and then it went away again. And So this is the La Plena. And what I find really fascinating about the La Plena is that you have basically a community that is coming together and dancing to kind of tell a story. So they have, again, costuming is kind of open. Usually the women dress up, and that means that they are going to wear pearls. There's always a pearl necklace at least. Usually some sort of fluffier or petticoated skirt. My guys are also going to dress up. In this case, it means a belt and the hat, which they're using right here. And then the singers or the musicians back here are actually singing or kind of telling a story. We have a guest who comes and shares Puerto Rican folk dance with us. And they were saying that the La Plena is basically like a newspaper. So the idea is that the songs and the dance kind of share the feelings of the community with the community. So she actually did a La Plena with us, and the kind of premise of it was after the hurricane, we were celebrating being back together again. So she brought instruments that we, as the dancers, also played, which is another way of doing the La Plena, and various rhythms, and then people would kind of step forward and do their little dance. And she gave us a couple of steps, but it's really kind of more improv. This one is actually very choreographed, of course. So that is our La Plena. So, hi, Philip. But everybody else join in on the chat if you don't feel comfortable kind of being on screen. Which of these two would you prefer to do? Would you rather do the La Plena or the Danza? And there could be various reasons why you choose one over the other. So which would you rather do?
I would do the danza because of the long skirts and how they move. They remind me of El Son de la Negra. That's like a dance where they use the long dresses and the skirt, and it goes like in a circle. And they dance with the partner. I think that's fun because of the dress. Looks very beautiful.
That's so cool. Yes, thank you, Stephanie. That's awesome. I love that.
I think I would probably do La Plena because the men's part was a lot more fun. You got like a hat. There's a lot more going on. But definitely, I agree with Stephanie that the Plena, the skirts were so pretty.
Yeah. The costumes for the danza just seem so like elegant, right? I think that just looks so nice. And you know, it's kind of funny when our guest was in and they were talking about setting up for you know, a performance or whatnot, and they were doing a danza, and apparently all of the guys who were doing the danza were like, oh, because they don't like wearing the tuxedos. And I was like, I think there's some sort of, outside force that is like teaching guys like that tuxedos are bad, because tuxedos look amazing. And
Yeah, I think it looked really good. And like, it might have, the only thing that it was like full formal tuxedo. Like they had like tails and the like
yes.
vest and everything. I
Mhm.
was really impressed with theirs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the whole 9 yards. That's the costume, right? So the first one, it was actually like the less formal tuxedo, or sort of the cut of the jacket and the tie, but then
The smoking
no
jacket instead of
vest.
the morning jacket. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, thank you. That's the word. So yeah, I kind of, it's like, aw. And she said, but the girls kind of like it because they get to wear, she kind of described them more as ball gowns, right? So they get to have the long kind of elegant skirts, and yeah, it's very fancy. But yeah, I think the La Plena outfit looks like that would be so much fun. Like the skirt, and the guys get to mess with their hats, and that one was very choreographed, but you can imagine, like, no matter what kind of story or whatnot you might be telling, but there's a lot of interaction that gets to happen. So yeah. All right. Tay, which one are you doing? She might be having breakfast.
I actually just got done eating, actually. I liked both. I don't know. They both seem really fun.
Yeah. Cool. Oh, Michaelin's jumping in before I call on her. The danza, because it oh, I love that. Okay. So she likes the outfits for the La Plena. But the danza, because it looks a little easier. And yeah, it does. I mean, to a certain extent, you don't feel like you would mess up as much, or I would personally feel like I wouldn't mess up as much, because it's like, I can only go so far. Versus the La Plena, where I love that one section where they're like rotating around, and it takes a minute, but you realize like it's a circle that they're actually making, and they're like out of the circle, and then they're in the circle, and they're going ba, da, da. I'm like, that looks awesome, right? But I would totally be the one who's like, I'm facing the wrong way. So yeah. Yeah. All right, Alex, which one are you doing?
Not to just jump on the bandwagon, but definitely the La Plena.
Oh
It just
yeah,
looks
no,
so
that's
much
cool.
more like, not so much more, but it looks like a lot of fun. Like it just is like I
Yeah.
could just do that for a long time and just party hard.
Yes, I know. And even, I mean, not that the people observing the danza are not also
Mhm.
very engaged in what's going on, but the La Plena kind of, at least the music to me, kind of lends itself more to the audience also feeling like, hey,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, good. Okay, and my other Stephanie, I haven't heard from you yet, but I know you might only be able to text.
No, it's okay. I think I like the I don't know what it's called. The one with the red dress.
Oh, so the La Plena.
The planner, yes. I
Yeah.
like it. It just like gives me very what's the word? Like um it just takes me back, because out here I go to San Antonio a lot, and they have like a plaza over there, like a little Mexican area.
Fun, yeah.
Yeah, and they have women dancing just like that, like, like they have this long dress with like many layers, and I've always like been really interested in that. I've honestly, for like, how we have to do like a presentation dance,
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for a dress like that to like wear, because I was like, because they sell them over there, and I was like, ooh, I want that, but I haven't found one. But I just love the dresses, the layers of it, how big they are, how beautiful the women look when like they do their makeup and stuff like that. Like I like it a lot, and how they dance with men. I don't know what the dance is called that I watch and stuff like that, but I enjoy it a lot.
No, that's great. We might see it when we get to Ballet Folklorico. Although there is actually a lot of Puerto Rican dance that is done around here. And probably San Antonio as well. So great. I would love to see some of that for your presentation. That would be cool.
I went to the Marqueta the other day with some friends because I don't know. I haven't been to a marketplace in a long time. I don't know. Have you been to a market like the flea market?
Again, it's been a very, very long time, and not even this year, but yeah.
Well, it's like an area, lots of Mexicans there, lots of Spanish people, and they have like they're selling things. And I was looking at some dresses while I was out there, but I haven't found one that I really liked yet.
Yeah, I went, there used to be, I think it might be still there. There used to be a big market that happened in between Austin and San Antonio.
Yeah, there's
Yes,
one off
okay.
183 or
Yes.
something like that.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
but I
And
think they're closing that one down, the like really huge one that I used to go to when I was younger. I think that they closed that one down because, like, I guess during COVID, a lot of people weren't going and stuff like that, so they just shut it down.
Yeah.
But I went to another one over here by where I live. It's not as big, but it's still nice, you know.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool. Okay, now we're gonna see the third one, and I'm not gonna say anything about it. And then we'll come back and we'll see which of these three you would want to do, and maybe your plans will change, maybe they will stay the same. So we'll take a look. So this last one, and if you got to see the lecture already, you know it, is the bomba. So the first one, the danza, you can definitely see the blending with the Spanish, right? The very colonial, very formal Spanish. And then the second one, the La Plena, you can see kind of more of a cultural aspect to it, right? More of like a folk dance kind of aspect. So it reminds me a lot of what also we're going to see today, but ballet folklorico, right? Because it's very folkloric in kind of that quality. And even if you kind of change the music a little bit and change some of the costuming and change some of the choreography, but you get what I'm saying, you could kind of get close to like square dancing or something, which again is a folk dance for, sort of the United States, that has more of a Polish background to it. The square dancing does. The bomba is a community building example where I see a lot of the African influence. Stopping it in the middle of a verse, I'm sorry, but I wanted to kind of give you the pointers of what's happening here. So this is a traditional bomba. You can also see a more formalized bomba that happens when they kind of set the choreography or set who's going in when. But it is actually very, very common for a bomba to just happen like this, right? A family's getting together and having a party, and they all set up with their drums and they just go. And the bomba is basically kind of a duet between the dancer and the lead drummer. In this case, it's my gentleman here in the orange shirt. You'll notice that kind of like everybody else is keeping the same rhythm the whole time through, and he is changing it up to follow her. So they are actually kind of interacting in their rhythms and their music. And then back here, we have the singers or the chanters, and they will actually sing the different choruses and verses, and kind of everybody joins in, right? So everyone might be singing the chorus. The audience can share in, the audience can jump in and join at any time. this one can be done by anyone of any age. I think I showed you the woman in the yellow shirt more in our lecture, so I think you kind of have gotten to see her a little bit. We of course start with the boy at the beginning. It's very improv, but you can kind of see like they fall back to certain rhythms and certain kind of movements. It has kind of a almost hip hop circle sense to it, right? You can be in the circle and you can come in and join in, and then when you're good, you come back out. I don't think I had it necessarily in the lecture, but maybe two guys come in on either side of a woman who's like, and they kind of like leave her there, and then she gets going and she has fun. So it's very much kind of a a community building dance and experience. And again, it can be more formalized, but like that's the true sense of the bomba. It's kind of like the samba. We often and I had a guest, she moved though, who used to share the samba with us. And a lot of times people think, oh, the samba is like 3-inch heels and feathers coming out of my head and very carnival samba kind of action. And she said, no, actually, the traditional samba is a circle, and you have musicians on one side of the circle, and you have people who just come in and out of the circle. And it's like I would do my little dance, whatever I wanted to, kind of going to the rhythm. And then I would come over and like, we can't do it right now because of COVID, right? I might like, shoulder bump like Philip. And then Philip is going to like mosey into the circle and I take Philip's spot. And Philip does, and then comes out and like hip bumps Tay, and then Tay goes in and does her, like that's the samba. Right, and the bomba has very much that same kind of feel. Samba, again, is traditionally from Brazil. So we have kind of a similar sense here in the bomba, and you can definitely see a lot more of the African influence. So the danza has a lot of the Spanish influence, and the bomba has a lot of the African influence. And it's just kind of, very, very different dances. So between these three, I would love to see somebody though in a danza costume, like do the bomba. I think that would be hilarious. And I could absolutely see it happening right after like we performed our danza for, whatever it was. And then all the musicians are just kind of jamming out. And so we end up doing a bomba. Like I could totally see it. Can't you? I'm crazy. It's okay.
Kind of what I was thinking about, actually. What I saw when I saw the bomba was, if you've ever seen the movie Paris is Burning or know anything about the Vogue culture in New York, it's like
Yes.
gay subculture, and it's a lot of folks of color, African American, and a lot of Puerto Rican, New Yorican folks.
Yes.
In the 80s and the late 70s developed this, and when I watched this, I was kind of like, this kind of reminds me of what they call a ball.
Yes.
And a ball has a long history that sort of precedes Paris is Burning, from the 19th century. But the whole circle thing in a room with musicians on one side, people in the middle coming in and out, is very similar to a ball. And I thought that was really cool. And the thing that I thought really struck me about it is when I took a dance appreciation, and kind of one of the fundamental things that you learn is the difference between like participatory dance and spectator dance.
Yeah.
So it's like the difference between, standing on and just watching people dance, like in the danza, or, actually getting up and doing the dance, like in a square dance or something like that. And I thought it was really cool how people were like watching on the sidelines and then coming in, like, ooh, that gives me the frisson, the goosebumps.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
Yes. No, I love that you brought that connection in, because to a certain extent, right, in Western dance, when we say Western dance, what we mean is something on a stage that you can't touch, right? So I can't go down to Ballet Austin at the Long Center and show up with my little Sugar Plum Fairy costume and be like, okay, I'm ready. Let's go. Right? They're going to be like, cops. Call the cops. So, you know, we definitely have kind of this separation. And what's interesting from dance appreciation, right, is that's often caused by the stage. And so what's really fascinating about a lot of our folkloric dance, we will have obviously exceptions because the videos that I'm about to share with you are all on a stage, right? But these are dances that are shared in communities, right? So it is intended for you to be able to kind of break that fourth wall and go up there and be a part of it. And a lot more so with the bomba than like the La Plena. You can kind of see it, right? Like Alex and I were kind of chatting about, like, you know, the music kind of gets you going and you're like, I want to do this, like, teach me, right? But then the danza sort of seems a little hands off, although it does come from a dance and a time when you would have been dressed that way as well. And so you could have potentially entered and said, hello, I am ready to dance. Will you dance with me? Right? And then you would do your danza. You can't see, I'm pretend holding a fan over here. So, you know, it does come from that place, but the bomba most definitely, is I'm doing this to be seen, but I can also stand back and see it. I don't have to participate, but I also don't feel excluded, the way that like Nutcracker is like there. And so yeah, good point, Philip. Thank you. All right, so which one do y'all want to do? And you can put in the chat if you don't want to say. So we got the danza, which is the more formal one. Alex, yep. You got the La Plena, which is the storytelling with the skirts, and you got the bomba. Oh, Tay kind of popped in. There you go, Tay.
I would do the bomba for sure. That one seems very fun. I like the bomba because it seems very free-willed and improv-y, like you had said. They don't seem to be strict or tense or anything, and they all just come together between the dancers and the singers and the drummers. Like how you said, the drummer is kind of moving to the beat of the dancer. I just liked all that connectivity and the relationship with it all.
I love that sense of a duet. This is probably TMI, but when I do my Loie Fuller performances, I always feel like I'm really kind of doing a duet with the lights, right? If I am on with, usually my light board op also happens to be my lighting designer, also happens to be my historical collaborator, Megan. And so when Megan is like doing, you know, the lights, and I can feel them changing, even though she's way over there in the booth, I feel like we've kind of got a duet going. And it feels so good. And I can tell, it's really weird. Like I can tell when I'm dancing with her versus when I'm dancing with someone else. And I think it's kind of the same thing, Tay, like when you're dancing with that drummer, it's like you're really interacting with that person without saying a word, right? So there's this kind of give and take, this share that happens. And I love that. There's just, that's the best thing ever. All right. Michaelin, which one are you doing? Oh, she already got it. Very. Michaelin is sticking with the danza. I appreciate that very much. Loves the energy and vibes of the bomba. Yes. Yeah. I totally get it. Yeah, like the danza again is the safest one. I completely appreciate that. And I think probably realistically, that's probably the one I would look the best doing, because the bomba, I would just be like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I don't care. But it would be so much fun. Alex already said the bomba.
Yeah, and I loved the lady that was on the left of the video, and she was just like so involved, like, and hyping everybody up that was dancing. I was like, yes, love her.
Yeah, no, I almost now, because I've seen it a couple of times, I almost now love to watch kind of the crowd even more so. Because I love how like she's singing along and she's like getting into it.
She's just so like happy.
Yeah, it's just such good energy, that one. All right, both of my Stephanies.
I'm going to stick with my original answer.
Well, which one did you have originally, Stephanie?
The Poma, what is it? Starts
Oh,
with
the La
P.
Plena?
Yeah.
Or the Danza where they're very formal?
No, the La Plema. That's the one with the red.
Okay, that's what I thought you were. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The La Plena is really fun. I love the storytelling aspect too. Oh, and Stephanie R is going for the bomba also. Oh, it reminds you of Monterey. Oh, that's nice. I like that. Oh, and cumbia. Yes. It definitely has a cumbia feel, right? And that even the rhythms, right? You can really kind of hear similar rhythms to it. So I love that connection. Yay. Cool. Okay, so now we're going to go to another place that is influenced by the Spanish. This is not an island nation though, but we do still have a very significant mixing of the indigenous culture with the, wait, which one is my PowerPoint? There we go, okay. And we are going, oh, before we jump to Mexico, this little clip right here, and I think I mentioned it in the lecture, but you can also check it out. This is if you want to know a little bit more about the status of Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico is a U.S. Commonwealth and territory, which means that the people in Puerto Rico do actually pay in to our governmental system, and they get to vote for their representatives, but they don't have the right to vote in like U.S. Presidential elections. So if you've ever wondered why people talk about making Puerto Rico a state if they want to, this explains the if they want to part. Because there have obviously been a lot of ups and downs as far as Puerto Rico's relationship with the U.S. And so this kind of gives you a little bit more of the background of that. So Mexico, also colonized by the Spanish, has a number of different states. And so just like the USA, all of these states kind of have their own personality. And each state also has kind of its own style. And if you got to do the reading, the woman who kind of starts to pull all this together was named Amalia Hernandez. And to this day, the Amalia Hernandez Dance Company is basically the national dance company of Mexico. They present all of the different dances from all of the different states. Not all at the same time, because there's a bunch of them. So we actually learned a dance from Guerrero, which is here. And there are multiple dances from Guerrero. You're going to see a couple of little examples, and then we'll talk about our experience as well as how it kind of contrasts to Spain and flamenco, right? Because again, we have the Spanish influence here. But each of these states has their own kind of personality and culture. So here in Veracruz, we are still fairly aligned to the Spanish, and so you can see that in the costuming. But they are also, they have obviously a very expansive coastline, and so they do a lot of dancing that sort of relates to fishermen and sailors. And so one of the dances, my favorite actually, Veracruz is done in a white lace looking kind of dress with a little apron, a little black apron. They dance with candles in their palms and a candle balanced on their head. And this is actually to sort of represent the lighthouses and you know, welcoming the sailors and the fishermen home, you know, led by the light kind of idea. And it's really cool, and I really love it. So each of these states has their own personality. The dance, though, that is often kind of shared as being the Mexican dance or the dance of Mexico is actually the Mexican hat dance, or this dance in particular. And I shared it with us in the lecture, but it's interesting because if you learned ballet folklorico at some point in time, you probably started with a version of the Mexican hat dance, because the music and the stylings and the steps and the costumes are all very, very indicative of all of the other states and styles. There goes the hat. I think I said this in the lecture, but the hat is symbolic of kind of the guy's heart or the guy's interest. If the woman is not interested, she can step on the hat, which ultimately ends up breaking it. And this was probably the most expensive item that the guy owned. So by picking it up, she accepts his interest, and yay! So that one's just kind of fun. All of Ballet Folklorico is really colorful and vibrant. The music, of course, changes for the different regions. So we have different instrumentation, we have different rhythms. We also have different kind of tonalities that come in to help represent the different states. And all of this kind of relates back to the 1910 revolution in Mexico. And so as a part of this revolutionary movement, we actually start to have various, they already existed, but we start to have various kind of folk dances from different regions kind of rising to the forefront. And then along comes Amalia Hernandez, who is very interested in kind of curating these dances, right? And collecting them and teaching them and sharing them. It's sort of like if Texas had a dance, maybe they're the only ones who know the Texas two-step, right? And it is shared out and taught to people in Maine. And then the state dance of Maine is taught to people in Texas, right? So you learn more about your country and about the different people and peoples who live in your country by learning their dances. And it was a way of kind of unifying Mexico and kind of creating a sense of national identity and community. So this first one is an example from a state that has a lot more of an indigenous population. So you can tell by the costuming, you can tell by the music, and you can also tell by the movement. So this is a folk dance from one of the states that has a closer alliance to their native population or their indigenous population. And this is Guerrero. the fun things to note here is they do not have shoes. We, of course, wore shoes in ours, but they don't wear shoes all the time. Not all the dances are the same. Now they have shoes on. I'm gonna pause them there and I'm gonna come out. So there are so many different ballet folklorico dances. We could literally spend the entire semester just looking at all of the different ballet folklorico dances. So to that end, if you were thinking about, I know Stephanie was talking about one of the ones she saw at the market. If you were thinking about doing a ballet folklorico dance for your presentation, you absolutely may, right? Even though I'm sharing a little bit in here to show kind of folkloric dance and the way it was building national kind of unity and national identity, you can 100% say, I want to do the candle dance from Veracruz, right? Or any of the others. There are others where you can see their very, very clear connection to Spain, complete with the full-on headdresses for the ladies and the, you know, real detailed suits and embroidery for the men. Then there are examples where there really wasn't much. And so what Amalia Hernandez ends up doing is creating a piece. It's called The Deer Hunt, I think. And that's translating from Spanish. And it is one dancer is the deer and two dancers are the hunters. And it's basically sort of a reenactment of a deer hunt. And that is the example from one state that just really didn't have much in the way of folk dance because it was so kind of wooded and aligned to their native population. So they chose a story from the native population and reenacted that. So that has become their dance. So it's very, very diverse in that way. But the reason I came out after looking at Guerrero is for anyone who got to do the Guerrero dance experience. So it's okay if you didn't get to it yet, but be honest, did anyone get to do it? I don't see any thumbs ups. That's okay. That's okay. So when you do get to do it, I want you to really kind of, first of all, she's a fabulous teacher. She really kind of, she starts with one thing and then you do it and then she adds the next thing and then you go back and you do the first thing with the second thing. And I really appreciate how she teaches because, oh my goodness, if you have ever taken tap, ballet folklorico, like flamenco, is very, very hard for me conceptually to sort of piece together. And actually, that's a great little thing that I just was reminded of. We have had, or we had our first one on Friday, dance majors kind of meetings. And we had a guest who came in and who shared the shim sham, which is a tap kind of piece with us. Amazing. He was so cool. And we are now actually going to open those up to any of the people who are participating in our dance classes. So even if you are not a dance major, if you wish to come and kind of experience some of what they're doing, so we have both a conversation or a presentation and then we have an actual experience that's happening. I think the next one coming up, they are also local Austin artists, and shoot, I can't remember all the details, but I'll try to email you guys the little information flyer. I don't know if you'll have access to seeing the Shim Sham, you know, the one that we got to do on Friday. But if you do, it's so cool, and just try it. It's like, oh my gosh, like I was decent at tap. My ankles are not loose enough because I did a lot of ballet. So I'm very used to holding my ankle very tight, and that's a bad thing for tap. And so flamenco is kind of challenging because you have to move your feet a little bit. But Guerrero and Ballet Folklorico, oh my goodness, right? The use of the heel, like she does this one little da 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 thing, and I'm like, because it's so much fun. And also, you'll see a lot of similarities in the use of the feet. So there's this hook gesture that the gentlemen do, and the ladies kind of do a similar where they kind of brush their skirt. But that is a direct lift from like the Sevillanas that we did with Roxy in the flamenco dance. So hopefully when you do get to experience, you'll see how kind of similar but yet different they are. So one, of course, you know, is a blending of cultures in Spain, and the other is a blending of cultures in Mexico. So there are some similarities, but also some major differences. It's crazy. On the Dance Majors thing, we have a lot of various guests who are going to share things with us, and hopefully I'm not kind of blowing any surprises, but two of my friends who, one has been a dancer with Cher. He's going to she's going to share with us in the spring. And then another one basically is he retired now, but he was Paul Taylor's like principal dancer, and so he's going to be sharing with us in the spring. It's going to be so cool. Yes, so lots of really cool people, and we have amazing people lined up for the fall. I was in charge of those two, so I was like, ooh, let's get Jamal and Michael. That'd be awesome. And I was so touched. They both said yes. I was like, okay, I know this is totally random, but you know, so it's going to be awesome. So these are great experiences, and I will definitely share out with you guys now that we have opened them up to everyone, so we can have more people in there. And especially for you guys being World Dance, I think it's a great chance to kind of see and interact with a lot of different dance that's happening now today, because a lot of what we're doing today is actually a fusion of different ideas and things. So yay. Okay, so do the movement experience and then we'll talk. Yeah. Or you can definitely apply it to your unit paper when we get into that. So since we haven't really been able to have that experience and kind of talk more about it, I'm going to kind of move us into tango, because I think, you know, for Ballet Folklorico, so actually, let me back up. So for our first two, right, for Ghost Dance and Voodoo, we were really looking at sort of religious blending, right? A blending of a spirituality from the indigenous population and of the, I'll call them settlers in the United States, right? So the blending of a spirituality, like an earth-based religion, and Catholicism or Christianity in the United States. Then for Voodoo, we are looking at a blending of Catholicism with the indigenous spirit-based religion with the Yoruba religion from Africa. And so it actually, they kind of center it around the Yoruba religion from Africa, this sense of various beings and spirits, and it very easily aligns with the Catholic saints. That's why it's Catholicism. So it very easily aligns with the Catholic saints, as well as with the kind of spirits of various entities in nature. So we have the mother spirit in both the Yoruba religion and in the nature-based religion, and in Catholicism, her name is Mary. And so all of these blend into being one entity in voodoo. So those two were really very focused on a blending of religions. The last two that we just looked at, right, with Puerto Rico and with Mexico, are really blending a lot of cultures, right? So we see dance and music from the Yoruba religion, from the indigenous population, and from the Spanish influence blending in Puerto Rico. And in Mexico, we see a very significant blending of the indigenous population and the Spanish, with a bit of the Yoruba mixed in there for some of the beats in some of the different states. There was not as significant of a slave population in certain states, and so we don't have that blended in as much. Now we are going to move further into South America, and we are going to go to Argentina. Yay! So in the lecture, I got to share with you guys some of just the images for the tango. And I got to show you, here we go, we'll move past. Oh yeah, and again, I apologize to anyone pronouncing all of the indigenous cultures is, yeah, so I apologize. I think this one, somebody help me with it, is Teotihuacan. Does that sound right? So I apologize for the version I did before. So moving into Argentina, if you had a topographical map, you would actually see that the mountains run right along here, right along the border with Chile. And so this area right here in particular, as well as down here, this is big, basically pasture lands, as well as farming. And in particular, we're going to be concerned with the caballeros, or the cowboys, in Argentina. The people who we are looking at, and I'll come back here because I know I've got my little one, but my other one is being weird today. I don't know why it won't stay. So the people that we're looking at are basically the migrant workers. So turn of the last century and a little bit before, so into the late 1800s, we actually had a number of men in particular who would come from Spain, from Portugal, as well as other places throughout Europe, and they would come to Argentina, and they would work as cowboys, and they would send money home. So very much sort of the traditional migrant worker setup, but with an ocean in between them, yeah? And so they would come on their own, send money home. Sometimes if they made enough money, they would then pay for a bride, kind of an arranged marriage, to come and join them in Argentina. They did not, then they were kind of on their own. And all of these guys on their own, with fewer women available, seek out accessible female companionship, shall we say. So when they would go into the cities, the accessible females would be in the brothels. And when you have lots of clients, you can be more picky. And so the brothel workers decided, you know, I think it kind of built over time, right? That it was like, ooh, you're a good dancer. I will spend my time with you, right? Versus kind of other situations where it was just, yeah. So, and what that basically is just a straightforward interaction. Yeah, you get what I'm saying there? So this was a way for the brothel workers to kind of figure out who they wanted to spend their time with, because they had their pick, right? And so the gentleman would come in from, you know, being out with the cows, and they wanted to show off, right? Somehow I wanted to stand out to be the one that the brothel workers like, okay, you know, you get this hour, right? I want to stand out. How could I do that? I could do that by doing this new dance thing called the tango. Now, the first time I did the tango, maybe, I probably was not very good at it, and she did not pick me, right? And so, man, shoot. Okay, fine. So what I end up doing is I end up asking my friends if they will dance with me. Now, where this gets a little interesting is I've had the question before, well, what if the guys actually just enjoyed dancing with the guys? That is highly likely, right? It is highly likely that if you are in this situation that, you know, dancing with another guy was also enjoyable too. So we actually have kind of this historical record of men dancing with men kind of out on the plains, you know, evening time, we're all just hanging out. So, all right, let's work on our tango, right? So when we go back into the city, we can be cool for the girls. Not saying that they weren't already enjoying themselves, right? Dancing with other guys. This is ultimately one of the elements that's kind of going to get the tango in trouble with the national government, though. So they've practiced. Now I'm much better, right? I've worked on my tango skills. I go back in, and now I'm going to do my tango. Ooh, she picked me. Yay. All right. I get to go hang out for a little while. And so that's really kind of where the tango started. So it is a dance that was originally perceived of as being for fallen women, yes, as well as men. And so, of course, my upper echelons of society are like, ooh, that is not okay on so many levels, right? We do not want guys dancing with guys. Well, they're doing it to be macho for the ladies. Yeah, let's talk about that, right? So the tango is bad. The tango is basically banned, right? Bad, bad thing. You can only do it like under the dark of night, basically. Well, guess what? The caballeros, or the cowboys, are not the only ones who frequent the brothels. We also have upper class members of society, mainly the younger sons, right, who can't necessarily get what they want from the women in their social class. So where do they go? They're going to the brothels also. And when they get there, she turns around and says, well, show me your tango. My what? I don't, what? So, of course, now I am going to learn my tango, right? My goodness, well, what? I didn't know there was more than just money that had to happen here. So, yes, let me learn this, right? So we now have the upper class sons learning the tango. But wait, my dad was probably one of the people who banned this. Yeah. So these upper class sons learn the tango in order, yes, toxic mac, you got it, Alex, 100%, right? And what I also find interesting is I had a question too, like, didn't the women have to practice? And I'm like, yeah, they probably did, but female brothel workers, right, dancing with other female brothel workers, that's not seen as a threat, that's seen as sexy. Right? So again, toxic masculinity, because the men don't mind. And it is primarily, I would hazard to say at this point in history, exclusively men who are the government, right? So they don't mind girls dancing with girls, but they do mind guys dancing with guys. Yeah. And they do mind dancing for sex, right? So it's a very, yes, toxic is an excellent word, situation. And we end up with these upper class men, primarily young men, who learn the tango. What ends up happening to them is daddy says, ooh, you know, it's time for you to get some culture. I'm going to send you back to Europe to do your European tour. This was actually very common. I would love it if this still happened, like just on a personal level. I would just love for somebody to pay for me to go spend a year in Europe. Like, yes, please. that of course was not the goal at the time. The goal at the time was to, have some culture and hopefully interact with suitable young ladies who were also on their European tour. Like that was the hope. It was basically a matchmaking scheme. And so we end up with the young men going to Europe. Among other places, they end up in Paris. Paris was also at this time known for being a little bawdy, a little risque, but also very, very upper class. So I don't know if they talked about this, Philip, in Dance Appreciation, because I'm not sure who you took it with. But Paris at the turn of the last century was very much like Las Vegas today, right? You could go down the street and you could see the can-can, or you could see topless dancers. You still can today in Paris. You still can go today. Like I think the Moulin Rouge 10 o'clock show is listed as like, hey, just FYI, this is traditional. And by traditional, we mean, yeah. So, it definitely had that sort of sense to it at the time period, right? So it was I think the Louvre had already been started. The Louvre had been founded. It's not as big as it is today, but the Louvre had already started to share, beautiful works of art. We had, of course, the Paris Opera. We had the orchestra. We are going to have the Ballet Russe, which is a dance company. Yes, a dance company that shares very avant-garde, very cutting-edge dance pieces. And so the young men from, wealthy families in Argentina come to Paris, and they end up dancing in the cafes, and they teach this brand new thing that they know called the tango. And of course, Parisians being, let's say somewhat open to more risque elements, love the tango. They love the tango, and they are super excited to learn the tango. And that gradually expands throughout Europe. And guess what? It gets back to Argentina. And the government in Argentina is like, oh, you like this dance? Okay, yeah, that's totally us. Right? So it's like, we don't want you to exist. We don't want you to exist. We don't want you to exist. You exist and you do really well. Oh, okay, yeah, you're ours. Right? So all of a sudden they kind of rise up and claim it. We have notable social dancers of the time, Vernon Irene Castle, who perform the tango. We have Rudy Valentino perform the tango, and everyone's just like, oh, this is amazing. We love this. This is incredible, right? What did that original tango look a little bit more like? It probably looked a little bit more like the version of the tango seen in Scent of a Woman. So I know I didn't get to share these in the lecture, so I'm going to share them now. So to set this story up just a little bit, we have our character here. Oh, no, that's the young guy, who is blind, and he smells this young lady across the restaurant, and he says, oh, she smells beautiful. And he asks to be introduced, and then he invites her to tango with him. Also, the premise is she's never tangoed before. I don't know if I believe that. Ooh. So that was probably the most common form of tango that was seen about 100-ish years ago, and the one that really kind of took Paris by storm. However, you could definitely have more lifts and more kind of dramatic movements in your tango. And this later kind of grows out of an interest in really kind of making the tango tell more of a story. So this is kind of a later progression. It's now what's often known as the Argentine tango. Interesting, right? We don't like you, we don't like you, we love you, you're awesome. And now it has become kind of the dance, the national dance of Argentina. So this is from another movie called Take the Lead. The premise here is that we have a teacher, he's coming down the stairs, and he is trying to get through to some students who are, you know, just having a hard time in school. And he uses dance.
Mr. Delane, just get his flirt on.
He comes out of that and he goes, thank you. And then I just like to share this one because it's funny. This is the tango from the Addams Family. It's just silly. And then it switches. It goes into a little bit more of a paso doble with a cape and all of that kind of fun stuff. But it's, you know, it's kind of fun and crazy. So I will leave us kind of with this image up for a minute, and I will preface into kind of my question. So the tango began as something that was outlawed, and then when it is seen in the 1920s and 1930s, it is really celebrated as being something that is truly you know, Argentina, and you know what an amazing piece this is, or what an amazing kind of dance this is. Then in the 30s, actually later 30s, and then partially into World War II, we actually have a return to a crackdown on the tango. Because again, the tango is seen as this, you know, very lewd and sexy dance. The partners are very, very close to each other. Sometimes he's even, you know, picking her up. Her leg is on his leg. Like, this is just way too much contact for the government, for the censors of the time. And the idea of the fallen woman being part of the story. You could even see it echoed there in the Addams Family one, where he, you know, kind of responds to her kind of making eyes at another guy. And she, of course, responds to him making eyes at another woman. So, you know, that's still kind of part of the tango story. And the government, again, goes, no, we can't have this. But Argentina actually helps out in World War II, and we end up with these soldiers all over the world. And, you know, say in Germany, they start teaching the tango to other foreign service members. And so we end up with the tango kind of coming back, another resurgence of the tango. And once again, tango is, you know, sort of celebrated and appreciated. And now today, when, you know, we see clips on Buenos Aires, you will usually see people tangoing. Again, it's for the cameras, but you will see people tangoing in the middle of the square. So this has definitely become synonymous with Argentina, the way maybe that like tea is synonymous with England. So how do we feel about the government initially, oh no, we lost my other Stephanie. Bye, Stephanie. How do we feel about the government initially saying, no, not okay, and then kind of reversing course? How do we feel about, you know, we talked about how we felt about the government cracking down on the Native Americans, right? If you're not in big groups, then we can't kill you. Wait, what? Right? And so here the government is responding with, you know, not okay, not okay. Everybody loves your dance. Oh, okay. Right? So how do we feel about that? How do we feel about this kind of turnaround?
It's kind of a triumph in a way for the folks who were doing it the whole time. Kind of, they got vindication at the end.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it's kind of, it's no good that they had to have their culture be suppressed in the meantime.
Yes, yes. Yeah. An interesting kind of connection that I heard made was actually to that of like pole dancing or dancing in heels. Now today, you can go and take any gender, you can go and take pole dancing or heel classes. I think they call them heel classes. And that is something that, you know, is seen as empowering and, you know, really sort of, you know, strength building. I don't know if you've ever seen pole dancers. Oh my gosh, they are just built. Like,
one of my friends, she does pole and she lives in San Francisco and works for Facebook. So she's like a fancy Facebook lady, but she does pole fitness. It's like her thing.
Oh my God,
yeah. Yeah, Alex?
We're saying I love that. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I mean, it is hard. Like you got to have some strength to do that. I can't do it.
No, I mean, I was just like, I am blown away. I've had a couple of students who have done it, who do it. Actually, one of them, how many years ago? It was like 5, 6 years ago now that she was in class, and she, oh, you do the, oh, Tay, you got to tell me about that because that sounds fun too. But she was like, I'm gonna take, so for dance appreciation, right? She was like, I'm gonna do pole dancing because I'm interested in it. And she found a place that was offering like your free class, your first class free. And so she went and did it as part of her presentation to kind of learn more about it. She really liked it. She kept going back. And now, speaking of Facebook, she's a friend of mine on Facebook, and she was in like some pole dancing competition. This was last year, like December last year, and she won. Like she won the thing, and I was like, I love you. Like that's so cool. To come from like, I'm just kind of interested and curious about what it is, to end up, winning a competition like 6 years later. And she's amazing. Um, and it's kind of interesting to see that now, because if we had even sort of broached this conversation maybe back in like 2000, you still would have probably gotten a lot of pushback of like, ooh, no, pole dancing that's just for strippers. Like, you don't want to do that, do you? Or the same thing, heel dancing, right? That's just for strippers. That's like, why would you do that? But now we've really kind of come around to celebrating it, celebrating the fitness and the fun, right? Tay, can you tell us a little bit about taking some heel classes? I've wanted to do that. I haven't had time yet. And right now you can't, but
I remember taking my first heel class probably like 2 years ago, but now it's a lot of fun. It's really like strength building and core building. Am I saying that right? Core building, yeah.
yeah.
And you just mainly just have to have a lot of stability and being able to balance. And but I've gotten better with it over time, and I've taken a few heel classes here and there, regularly, but then COVID stopped. But yeah, everyone, a lot of people perceive it as, for strippers or like, people who don't respect themselves. But no, I find it as like a really, a hobby for anyone to do, and it's not something to be ashamed about, I love it.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I love that. And so I think, there's a really great connection that can be made there, right? Where it wasn't necessarily the government saying like, ooh, you can't do pole dancing, where the government was definitely saying, oh, you can't do tango, right, in Argentina. But we have kind of these, like Tay was saying, right? People are like, ooh, like you can't do that. Whereas now I think we're kind of getting over that social stigma and being much more accepting of, being physical and enjoying working your body, right? We applaud people who go to the gym all the time. Yeah, yes, and that's the other thing, right? Mentally, it's such a confidence booster. It's such a they talk about runners having a runner's high, and I really think that there is this idea of like dancers having your own like moment. We got to talk a little bit, I think it was in the little clip that I sent with Czar, when we were talking about Czar, that this idea of when a dancer, so if you watch the whole clip, because I'm a total nerd and I did, but the one where she was doing like the TED Talk about genius and how it used to be perceived as this little genie that would come and give you genius, and sometimes the genie was like, I'm mad at you, I'm not going to give you anything today, right? And then you're like, ah. But one of the elements there was, if you saw a dancer who was just alive and on fire, they would say, I see God, right? So that moment when everything is just clicking as a dancer or as a performer and you're just in it, that was when they would say like, I see God, right? And that didn't mean like God was possessing you or, you know, speaking through you or something, but that you were just channeling the energy and the, you know, kind of movement of the universe. And so that's definitely a confidence boost. And so I think that's a huge part of what dance gives us, right? So we're celebrating, right? Wow, you look like you're in great shape. Yeah, I do heel work. You know, it's like, oh, that's so cool, right? And I think that's very different from if you had said that like in 1995 or something, they'd be like, oh, okay, right? Yeah.
Like the 90s.
I know, right? So the, you know, the perception has definitely changed. And, you know, I like to think that that's also kind of what, you know, Argentina did, right? They kind of went, oh, okay, right? We can accept this. It's okay. It's not going to reduce us as men to accept men dancing with men, right? That's okay. There is definitely still that macho kind of sense behind the tango because it is the sort of fallen woman story. Like the movie clips I showed you, we still have kind of that element to it. And you can see that kind of in the movements, right? So we have the woman often getting dipped. And personally, as a woman, I love getting dipped. It's so much fun. Right. And if you've ever danced with a partner and you get dipped, oh, it's so cool. But, you know, that action was supposed to be symbolic of like laying her down, right? Or, you know, leaving her on the floor at the end is because like, well, you know, she's going to go be with somebody else. So she's trash now. So it's very kind of like, ooh, I don't know that I like all of that in there, but you know, it definitely has kind of a sexual overtone still today. And you know, it's interesting that you know, they finally kind of came around and accepted it, and now they embrace it as being like, oh yeah, this is totally Argentina. Yeah. So kind of seeing how I think we'll go ahead and leave it there. That's kind of gotten into kind of unpacking for each of them a little bit of what you could kind of dig into for your paper. So basically for your paper, I'm asking this question in a broader sense among all of these dances, and you can parse them out. You can say like the bomba in Puerto Rico if you want, or you can do all Puerto Rican dances if you want. Or you can say, you know, a specific dance from Mexico, or you can say all of the Mexican dances, right? So you can kind of lump them together if you want, or you can parse them out. But what I'm asking is, which of these kind of stands out to you as being the one that is either the most pressed or the most limited? And then which one, you know, also could be the most celebrated? So does that mean that I have to find a way that voodoo is celebrated? No. If you want to go with voodoo and say it's the most oppressed because they basically formed a blockade for over 100 years and cut off all trade with the island, thus ensuring that Haiti is one of the poorest countries in the entire world. And the Catholic Church launched a still successful campaign calling voodoo devil worship that still exists today, then yeah, go for it, right? You don't have to show me that, you know, it's celebrated. I mean, you could say like, we see it in The Princess and the Frog as a bad thing. Right? So it's definitely, you know, still there. But if you want to do something like tango, you can, you know, kind of talk me through the ups and the downs, right? At first, it was something that just kind of happened, and everyone seemed comfortable dancing with anyone, but the government sees it and goes, whoa, no, right? We're not cool with that. Until, you know, it gets spread to the rest of the world, and the rest of the world goes, get over yourself. It's awesome. And so then it becomes kind of celebrated.
So we're doing less of a like on some of the others, at least me, I did a lot of more comparison between them and like the differences. So this one's going to be a little bit more about a particular one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can absolutely kind of touch on them if you want. My daughter is doing various writing formats right now, and it's called a funnel. I didn't know that. It's called a funnel, where you go like, first we visited ghost dance in North America, then we visited voodoo in Haiti, then we da-da-da-da. And ultimately, I'm going to bring us back to Ballet Folklorico in Mexico to talk about how it is a celebration of national identity. Right? So you can kind of touch on the others if you want to, Alex. But then, yeah, this one, unlike the others, is really kind of even narrowing our focus in. So our first paper was kind of a broad, I'll use the word superficial, but I don't mean like flighty, right? I mean, like, how does dance in India compare with your experience, right? So a very kind of broad, you could kind of take it any direction. Then our second one was a compare and contrast. Which one would you choose and which one would you not choose, right? So a compare and contrast between those. And then this one is definitely kind of a drilling down on one of them. So you can absolutely go back and watch the lectures and our conversation from last week, which got cut off. And of course this one as well. And kind of let yourself, which one stands out to you, right? Try not to kind of put blinders on yourself. Of these, we really looked at 5, right? If you kind of lump together the folkloric dances. Of these 5 kind of cultures and cultural dances, which one do you feel was the most celebrated, rightly or wrongly, right? Or which one do you feel was the most oppressed? And it could, like tango, be both, right? Because it was at first oppressed and then it was celebrated. And that's kind of why I finish with tango. It's because we see 2 that are very kind of limited, and then we see 2 that are celebrated for national identity. And then we see tango, which is kind of like, no, we don't like you. Oh, wait, you're cool. Okay, we'll keep you. No, we don't like you. Oh, okay, never mind. Like Pandora's out of the box.
I think that makes a lot more sense now. Thank you.
Okay, good. Yes. And thank you for asking, Alex. Yeah. All right. I'm going to pause us there. Go take your quiz. And then I am more than happy to take a look at drafts. And if you do have any questions, I will hang out for a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and pause our recording. Yay. Ta-da.